Fiorella Isabel. She's an independent journalist and a political analyst and co-host of the wonderfully named Convo Couch. Fiorella, welcome to the mother of all talk shows. Wonderful to see you. I've admired your work, and I'm glad that we managed to get you on the show tonight, not least because one of your preoccupations is increasingly becoming mine. You see, it is imagined, at least it was before Afghanistan and the flight from Kabul, that the United States hegemony is based on their military. But actually their military have not won a war since 1945, and it really wasn't them that won that. Their military is the least of their hegemonic powers. The real cause of their hegemony is the dollar hegemony, the dollar as king. I believe that, and I think you believe that too. Am I right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, the reason why this proxy war with Russia, that's what it is, via Ukraine is happening is because they want control of Eurasia. They want control of the region. And they also want control of the natural resources that are a part of the region. The problem with this attempt right now is that when Biden made those remarks in Poland, when he said that Putin shouldn't be the president of Russia, he was blatantly calling out regime change. But the tide has shifted. There has been a shift from unilateralism to multipolarism. So, like, a multipolarity that exists in this world is going to be completely different. It doesn't have the United States and NATO at the helm calling all the shots. It's going to have more of a cooperative agenda where you can tell that the global South, India, China, have fallen in line on the side of Russia in terms of looking at it as an economic alliance, if anything, because that's where the money is right now with China pushing the Belt and Road Initiative. And that's the people in if you're looking at it geopolitically as an analyst, you see that shift happening, and you see that it's an economic shift, especially with the Nord Stream pipeline and with everything that is China is providing to a lot of people. I've been in the global South. I've been in Nicaragua, and I've seen the excitement that is coming from people in Nicaragua in terms of the economic relationship that they will have with China versus the United States and the sanctions they've imposed on all of these countries that have not worked out favorably. The sanctions imposed by the United States on Russia have drastically affected the prices of food and oil, but specifically not because there's a scarcity of a product, but because of the inflation. And so this was going to happen anyway, but of course they're urging Americans to blame Russia and Putin. And they've even had a TikTok, like Jen Psaki and another national security advisor had a TikTok, an event where they told all the TikTokers that Putin was at fault for the rise in their gas prices. So they're like,
it's not really working though, Fiorella. It's not working,
no.
Especially on the economy. The latest numbers today are that only 33% of Americans approve of Joe Biden's handling of the economy. And as I said a few weeks ago, even if they did believe this was Putin's fault, there's nothing they can do about Putin. But they can do something about Joe Biden. And in November, they get one big, mighty chance to do that.
Yeah. I mean, November is going to show a drastic shift towards the right because of a lot of reasons, because of the mandates, because of the ineffectiveness of Joe Biden. But at the same time, Americans are largely understanding that their elections are not representative, that their elections are mostly a facade and theatrical. We have a two-party system that's really an illusion. It's a one-party system where we live in an oligarchy. The same companies own the same corporations. You have the two biggest, Vanguard and BlackRock, that own everything else. And then from those companies, you have the so-called competition of the free market that doesn't really exist in the United States. So you have the electoral system working the same way. So when people increasingly talk about electoral politics, many people feel that it's kind of a dead end, that it's just all PR, that these people are all narrative managers, that they're just there to sort of put out the narrative, but they're not really calling the shots. If you look at who's calling the shots right now, Anthony Blinken's statement after what Joe Biden said shows you that they don't want the quiet part said out loud like Joe Biden just did. They want to wrap it up in some sort of rhetoric and virtue signal where they can get away with saying they're going into save Ukraine and provide democracy. But Joe Biden isn't as eloquent a speaker as Barack Obama or others previous to him, kind of like Donald Trump was. And so he said the quiet part out loud, and now they have to sort of manage that and act like this isn't going to be, this isn't what it is. But we know for the longest time the United States has wanted to remove Vladimir Putin from power, and that they have this McCarthyite sort of sentiment that they've been pushing since the 1950s that, of course, came about with Russiagate and that failed narrative. But this is a whole other level that they're trying to do in terms of propaganda, the lies they have put out, the censorship of RT and the mass censorship of anything labeled as Russia state-affiliated media, the complete erasure of it all from YouTube. I mean, this is something that is unprecedented, and I haven't seen this level of propaganda yet before.
No, not me, and I've been watching it much longer than you. But that's because it has to. The credibility of the state in your country and in mine, and I think in many countries, in what we call the West, but which is actually merely the periphery of Eurasia. 10% of the population of the whole world live in the West. When we talk about the international community, we are actually talking about the governments of 10% of the world's population. I was thinking when you were talking there that the Shanghai Cooperation Treaty Organization alone, just that, contains 50% of the world's population and 50% of the world's wealth. And this swing is getting faster and faster. And Biden and the European government's sanctions will accelerate it, won't they?
Yeah, the sanctions immediately hurt Russia. The sanctions immediately had some sort of effect. But in the long run, Russia has other markets. Russia has China. Russia has India. I mean, India and Russia traded rupees to rubles. You also have Pakistan even coming in and saying that it was great that India remained a sovereign nation. You had Imran Khan say that. And these two countries have long been arch nemesis. So what you're seeing is there's so much support in the global South for what Russia is doing. Somebody standing up to the U.S. and NATO. And of course, we know that this didn't happen just when Vladimir Putin decided to, invade Russia. I don't like to call it even that, because to me, he's just responding to an aggression, red lines that were laid out a long time ago that the United States knew about, that NATO knew about, and they decided to completely throw them off. Not to mention the fact that Americans didn't care about the 14,000 people dying in the Donbas region for the last 8 years. They absolutely had no idea where any of this was happening. They couldn't even point to Ukraine on a map. They couldn't point to any of that on a map until the media told them to start caring about it. Just like the media told them, like, before, that the the people that weren't vaccinated were the enemy. Then it shifted to, okay, let me put my profile picture of a Ukrainian flag. And that's how media works in the United States of America. And unfortunately for the average American, all they're going to see is, and all they're seeing right now, is their food prices go up at the grocery store, their gas prices go up, and they're starting to ask questions. They're starting to say, wait a minute, why do I have to care about what's going on in Ukraine? And I mean, that's the average American sentiment. Like, they don't understand foreign policy. That's one of our biggest problems, even in the progressive, what they call progressive over here, which isn't really progressive, but the progressive Democrats, they hardly ever talk about foreign policy. So it's that sort of thing where I think once it hits them in the pockets, they're going to start pushing back. And we're seeing a little bit of that pushback already, where Biden's approval rating, as you mentioned before the program, has drastically dropped. And I think he's going to be sort of a fall guy, considering the New York Times just admitted that the Hunter Biden story that everybody was censored for talking about is actually a real thing.
Yeah, I'm worried about his prospects, actually, although I despise him. I wonder about what they're going to do next, because they plainly are embarrassed by him. They plainly would like a safer pair of hands at the tiller. They worry greatly about Kamala Harris. Nancy Pelosi is surely out of the question. They're in a bind, actually, as to what to do next. Tell us, Fiorella, how can people watch your stuff? How can they support you?
So I am on Twitter at Fiorella Isabel M, and you can find my stuff on Rockfin. It's ROKFIN. It's a cryptocurrency-based platform. I put it out first because YouTube is censoring everybody and everything. You can find us on YouTube at The Convo Couch. And you can just check out my Substack that I also write there too. Thank you so much for having me on, and I'm glad.
No, thank you. It won't be the last time. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.